You're listening to Hayes Radio Network, Cannabis Lifestyle Radio.
Yo, this is the Picture Be Rollin' Show. I'm your host, Chauncey Squints Leopardi. And today, I got my buddies, Beard Bros, coming on the show during these weird times. I know everybody's been on lockdown and a lot of weird stuff. Just so everybody knows, we won't be passing any type of joints or anything. Everything will be personal, and we want to keep it kosher, so to speak, you know. But thanks for coming on, guys. I'm glad that you guys could make it out in this these weird times. I like to say weird because it's very foreign to me, what's going on out in the streets. It's been a little nerve-wracking and a lot of anxiety, I guess.
It's wild. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I'll be 50 in a few years and never seen anything like it. We appreciate you having us out.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. So I normally, if anybody doesn't know who you guys are definitely huge influencers in the space and cultivators and have a great name in the game. But if you want to give me a little bit of background on how you guys got your start and what brings you into the cannabis field, I guess.
Yeah, like a lot of people, we started out East Coast, just looking to cultivate for ourselves initially, then realizing we had a passion and a talent for it, and looking to do it as much as we were able to East Coast until around 2010 when they started handing out really long sentences for those types of things. We realized we needed to make a trek west. Initially, that got us to Colorado in 2011. In between 2010 and 2011 for about a year, and then eventually out here to Cali, and been on that slow, perpetual hustle, that grind since then to build something out of nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are definitely right there right now, too, to have the brand really respected and going in a good way. That facility you guys are building with Matt is incredible. It looks amazing. Can't wait to see the product coming out of it.
Yeah, we're very happy to be part of that project. It's something we've been looking forward to, being able to get a new facility up. As we know, in the traditional market, we didn't have all these nice gadgets in all of our facilities. Our facilities were sometimes put together on shoestrings and were just efficient, not necessarily the best, but just ways to produce a good product. But these new facilities going up now with the foam walls and the rolling trays and the new lighting that's out, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that the most underrated thing in the rec market compared to the black market and what we're used to is the plumbing.
The plumbing is way different. No, there's not a lot of hand watering going on anymore.
I mean, and even if there is, it's like proper drainage, less floods, I'm sure. Like we were so building these things ourselves, and it was so like you did what you had to do with what you could.
That was going to be my comment. A lot less do it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, all the DIY stuff is kind of like catching the curb.
Scott at Rare Dankness, less bro, more pro.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. That's good. So you guys are lifers, man. I mean, that pilgrimage from back east to the West Coast that's huge to end up in Colorado because that was the first thing, legitimate. And like you said, you were trying to get to somewhere where you could, fulfill your passion without taking the risk that everybody was taking. And I mean, it's still taking, especially back east and in the Midwest and those red states across the country,
Yeah, absolutely. For us, it was about being able to cultivate a product and be able to sell it locally, legally. I mean, that was our whole thing of coming west, was that they were giving out long sentences back east, and they didn't look like they were going to be getting any quick progress on legalization. It has come along more than I ever thought it would since we've been out west. But, back in 2009 and 10 when we were gearing up to leave, there wasn't really anything on the horizon for the East Coast. And that's why we came west. And really, California back in like 2010, in that era, was the last chance you had to be able to set up a nonprofit for a couple $1,000s and get some patients and be able to state legally cultivate cannabis. So
yeah, for those that don't know, I mean, what he was telling you is how to start a cooperative, which is basically a co-op. A lot of these cultivators and early dispensaries were a cooperative of people, which is a group of people that basically put their doctor recommendations together so that their plant count can be a certain amount and that these things could operate. That was the Prop 215 days. Shout out to Dennis Perone for changing the world with that one, man. That was a game changer for all of us.
Without a doubt.
So, are you still shocked? I mean, I know we were in Vegas together and we went to dinner out there, but I was shocked, and I'm still shocked in most places. Like sometimes when I walk into some lawyer meetings, some city meetings, some walkthroughs with fire departments and things like that, where I've just kind of had like that moment of realization that, yo, this shit is real. Like we really made it. We beat these odds and we're able to make this thing like a reality. You know what I mean? Do you guys get those moments where you're just like, because you made the pilgrimage, and to like be in that space where you're like, yo, this is something that I can see being forever, you know what I mean? Or happening for the rest of our lives, you know?
Absolutely. Still get goosebumps all the time thinking about it, because coming from the East Coast, where there was never a culture of it. I mean, California at least had a culture from the 90s on. We were still getting locked up in 2010 on the East Coast, so there was no culture like that. So a lot of people, and not a negative thing, but a lot of people out here don't realize how good it is to be able to legally and cultivate cannabis. Being able to have a building that you have your name on, you can drive up to, as opposed to never taking the same route and parking down the street. And I remember back in the day, we used to go to hydroponic shops that were 4 cities over, an hour and a half away, so you could make sure you weren't getting followed.
Yeah, I mean, you'd put in a lot of extra work just to hide in plain sight, so to speak, because you're right. I mean, doubling up, taking extra long trips, never taking the same route. Like, nobody else has to think about this when they get up to go to work every day, you know what I mean? And everybody knows that I'm a big supporter of the plant, but, I mean, in all honesty, like, a guy cultivating indoor plant breed, I mean, what is the harm in that? And to be criminally charged the way that it is. I mean, it's a
these
racket. Guys get up and want to go to work.
It's a racket. I mean, 700,000 people, even after legalization for 33 states, you got 700,000 people being incarcerated for possession still.
Yeah.
It's a racket. It's not that they think it's dangerous. It's that they like the money.
I mean, yeah, I get that.
That's why we get that, unfortunately. But we're changing that, and it's amazing. And part of what California brings to the nation is destigmatizing this cannabis, because there's people out here that have been smoking cannabis for decades, and they're business owners, and they're doing well, and they're healthy, and it's completely the opposite of what we've been told since the just say no days of the early 80s.
Oh yeah, definitely. I grew up. I'm 81, so the DARE movement was my group. Like, that program was aimed directly at my age group. You know what I mean? Like, they used to have the McGruff come into the schools and the whole nine and do the whole thing. They had the little briefcase with all the little sectioned out drugs. And I remember the stigma of being like, yo, pot was a bad deal. You know what I mean? It was bad people did that and this and that. I still remember seeing bongs at my parents' friend's house randomly. Like, you have these memories when you're 5 and 6 and these ages. And I do remember like thinking, what the fuck is that? I remember seeing a dirty glass bong as like a 5-year-old somewhere in somebody's bathroom, like in a cabinet or something. I shouldn't have been looking at it and being like,
it's an interesting vase.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what is that? That's got to be for drugs or something. That's terrible.
Yeah, I figured that out at an early age because he's 6 years older than I am.
Oh, yeah,
so
that
by the time I was 10, 11, 12, I was finding those things in his room and going, what is that? And by 13, trying it myself. So
yeah.
Hey, that's when I started too, 13. Must be
I was 12 years old on the field at my 7th grade junior high school with a group of kids, and that was the first time I smoked.
Ironically, the first time I smoked was with a friend. I lived in central Pennsylvania at the time, but it was a friend of mine whose parents were professors at Cal State Fullerton, and they had moved to State College because they were teaching at Penn State. So it was him and his older brother who was in college that I smoked with first when I was like 13. So.
And mine was when I was 13 when he picked me up from YMCA basketball practice.
Yeah? And let him hit it, huh?
That was my recovery after practice.
What was it? Was it out of a pipe?
I think it was actually either a pipe or a joint. I'm not sure which. But it was 4 of us in a car and it was getting passed around. So
I remember the metal pipes that we used to have.
I think it was the metal pipe with the little compartment in the middle that you always threw a nug in and let it get nice and resonated and thinking you were smoking the really dank then.
Oh my God, the resin days.
Before we knew anything.
Yeah, I remember scraping pipes and bongs and smoking that and being like, I could get so many hits out of this.
The struggle's real.
Yo, the struggle is real. And
so
yo,
was
you
the
kids
headache.
today, you have no idea like how good you have it. You're just lucky you weren't in the early stage of the dab scene, because
If you think about it, a lot of the kids in the young 20s and late teens right now don't even know what it is to go through weed and have to pick out seeds and stems.
oh yeah. No. That's what I definitely smoking stress. And this is California, this is LA. I think there was probably a little bit of, but you know, you're a kid. I was smoking bullshit, and that's what it was. It was, you know, we had these dudes in a building. Shouts to the Connect, the first one, and we must have been teenagers, early teens, and they sold $5 sacks. They had $5 stress sacks, but looked like a little gram bag, basically like plucked full of stress, and then they sold $5 Garcia Vega stress blunts. The green leaves, right? So it depended on if you want a blunt or you wanted to smoke bowls or whatever. But that's how we started smoking. That was our first plug.
Well, you know, I have a really good, funny, traditional story.
Okay, cool.
One of the times, I started smoking then, but I then moved to to Easton, Pennsylvania, which is on the east side of Pennsylvania. We used to go to a place on the south side of Bethlehem, and we would go through and get dime bags. $10 bags of
Yeah.
weed. It was, not a whole lot. I guess I'm going to guess it was about a gram, and usually it was full of seeds. Every now and then they would stuff some alfalfa in there.
Oh yeah.
And this was a drive-through. It wasn't a good area of town, so you didn't go back and complain.
No, you're not gonna say nothing.
So we decided, well, if they want to start ripping us off, we can get back at them. So we started taking $10 bills and $1 bills. We'd cut them in half, tape them back together, and fold it up. So you'd hit one guy coming into the projects with a $10 bill that has it's only half of a $10 bill. Get one on the way out. And if they didn't find each other later on to split the $11, they didn't get anything either. So that was how we got back at them for giving us bunk pillow. We used to call them pillows. They were little pillow bags.
Yo, you gotta get creative. That's an amazing story, actually. And like, yo, the struggle was real. At least you got back. And I feel like, even in their shoes, I feel like I would respect that after it was over with. Like, these motherfuckers.
Nobody ever.
Hey, y'all got the other half of that?
and then they get to
Put this
split
shit
11. So,
damn, we just got halved.
but yeah, it's the times we're in. If you would have asked back then in the the late '80s, even in the early '90s, if we'd be sitting on a podcast talking about how we came up through cannabis, I would have said you're crazy. So.
Oh yeah, it's definitely well, it's a blessing. I'm happy to see it in the state that it is, and I'm happy to see that people are openly, freely able to talk about it and express their love for it. And even at like even with celebrities or people in the public eye, and for even service workers and people that they had to hide the fact that they benefited from the plant.
And now here we are in a crisis, and it's deemed essential services.
Yeah, which it is an essential service.
It absolutely is, but it hasn't been deemed that way.
No, and that felt amazing. I mean, I actually talked to my buddy Manny that runs Green Dragon, and he
Shout
said
out,
that to me.
Shout out, Manny. Just saw him a couple days ago.
Did you? Yeah, that's the homie. Yeah, for those that don't know, I managed a shop for quite a while, so that's my family. And Manny's a fucking pioneer and doing well. And what he said to me though in this text history was that we got deemed an essential business. Like, he was just like, I mean, people don't know the financial stress that everybody's been in through this crossover into these white markets. But he was like, I mean, he just felt like grateful. And I could tell, like, in the way that he wrote it, that he was just really grateful that obviously a lot of people are out of a job right now, and that he was still deemed necessary and essential. And it is an essential thing, obviously. We know, because we know how powerful the plant is, and also the good medical benefits that it has, and that it really does help people get through, people that have pain problems and painkillers and opiate addiction and stuff like that. Like, this is a necessary thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. First of all, you couldn't even just shut down cultivation to begin with, or within a few days, everything's gone. So, I mean, even beyond that, the cannabis industry, and especially in California, couldn't have taken it.
No.
If you had shut cannabis down for a month or two,
Oh,
that would have been
done.
the end of the entire cannabis market.
I mean,
in
it would have
California.
cost billions of dollars.
Yeah, and nobody would have. I don't think anybody would have
would've-
survived it.
No.
So as much as I don't want to I don't want to see people at risk, but I also realize that it is a medication that people need. So in a roundabout way, it was a good thing for cannabis that it didn't fall under and get shut down.
Yeah, and I guess the shops have been doing really well, and I think it was good for the legal market as well to keep that going and keep them because then also people, it's you're locked in the house, for
There's a lot of anxiety these days.
exactly, and it's definitely it definitely helps you get through your day, right? I remember Cat Williams in his old speech about weed, and he said it's got that fuck it in it. He's like, fuck them bills, right? Fuck that light bill. I got 12 candles, been waiting to burn them bitches. So it definitely gets us through whatever is aching. And in a time when you're just sitting around and thinking about, could be potentially thinking about negative things, hopefully it inspires people to appreciate this time and to grow from it.
If you had to get locked up in your house, I'd much rather see everybody smoking than drinking.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
I do agree.
It's the lesser of those two evils. I can agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about Beard Bros Farms a little bit. You guys have this nice cultivation that's being built right now. You also have RSO oil, which is big up for that because that is kind of something that I feel like one is the absolute best medicine in cannabis, you know what I mean? And also that I feel like it got lost a little bit in translation of this crossover market. The vape market was such a big draw for everybody, and especially across the country, that I feel like there's other products that can be made from cannabis that are underappreciated and undervalued. So when I see you guys doing the RSO everywhere, that's awesome.
Yeah, we felt we saw that too, and actually that's why we got more into it, making it for the LA market that we were serving, even in the 13, 14, 15, because we would take our flowers in and we would see that people never had a consistent RSO supply. They would have one brand in one time we were there, another brand or no brand, and they would tell us we can't find it.
It was hit or miss, bro.
Yeah.
And I remember just from running the shop, as I bought everything, so it was like I had a couple different vendors, but it was hit or miss, and they weren't around close. So sometimes I would have good RSO, and sometimes I wouldn't. And to be honest, from a shop standpoint, I mean, if people out there that are listening don't know, Rick Simpson oil is one of the most beneficial cancer drugs there is. It's been proven to do wonderful things in concoction with other treatments and to shrink cancer cells actually. And when people come in for RSO, they come in because they need it. This ain't the coming in because somebody wants to take the edge off. This is the customer that's coming in because they're stage 4 terminal, and this is either helping them be able to eat or helping them be able to sleep or helping them get through their pain or helping them have the hope that they can make it through this fight. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's sad that something like cannabis oil is not the first choice with healthcare. Unfortunately, like you said, it's the last choice. They've tried everything else. I'm at stage 4. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
What can I do? Maybe we should have tried that first. But to get back to why we did it, we found out we really got heavy into it 14, 15, 16, because what we noticed was everybody was using a lot of their products other than the top shelf nugs. Everybody had to have shatter and this, that, the other. That whole dichotomy of a relationship that cultivators had with the extractors is, we won't even get into that one now, but that was an interesting one. But we decided, hey, instead of being heady boys and having this amazing shatter, why don't we make a product that helps people? And so that's how we kind of got into it. We also noticed there was a gap in the market. So we thought, it's much better that way. We're providing a product that's helping people. And needed. So we got into that, and people appreciated that. We'd show up with our flowers, and, you need some RSO. We got that too. And we had a consistent product. We were getting it tested. Testing before testing was required because you wanted people to know what they were putting in their body, especially if they're coming in for some type of life-threatening illness to that. But as far as the RSO goes, it's the closest essence to the plant you can get in a concentrated form.
I think so. Yeah.
You lose very little with the alcohol extraction process. So for us, it's an amazing medicine. And the other reason we like it, it's a base, right? You can make a sublingual out of it. You can make a topical out of it. You can eat it edibly. Most RSO, if it's done properly, can be smoked, although it's not something that we actually advocate because it's not made for taste. It's made for medication.
Exactly.
But it can be smoked.
And people used to smoke it.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was the first form of
It
concentrate.
probably was. Our first
Yeah, I
dabs
mean,
were
RSO. Yeah,
my
you're
first
lining
dabs
oil with
were
it.
RSO in
Yeah.
Colorado
Okay, so there you go.
in 2010 on a skillet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The reality of it is though also it started out as a cancer curing drug, but it is something much more beneficial on an everyday basis. Both Bill and I.
Yeah, I believe microdosing or even dosing, depending on people's tolerance, is definitely something that we should look at as a whole in society as something that would be beneficial to us long term for all types of reasons.
We take it about 2 hours before sleep every night, a small 1/10 of a gram dose, and it provides that proper rest and recovery that you need. Everybody now with all their phones, always, all that visual
Blue light
stimulus,
yeah.
you get into that deep REM sleep to the point where you're waking up 7 to 8 hours later, going
Refreshed.
straight to the
Down,
bathroom
tossing and
because you
turning.
didn't all night. And literally, as soon as you hit the pillow, you're down. So just from a rest and recovery standpoint, it's really beneficial. But the reason it's an underrepresented product is people don't know about it. All the new consumers went to what they're comfortable with, joints, flower, eventually into the vape carts, but they haven't really explored out into any of those fringe categories of cannabis, into a lot of the sublingual, topical, dermal appropriation.
Which are the most beneficial.
Yeah, from a
all
medical
sense
standpoint.
from a medical standpoint.
But from a shop perspective, they're not high volume
No.
products, so that's why there's a difficulty of getting them into consumers' hands.
Exactly, yes. And it was something, like I said, like I needed all of those things from a shop standpoint in the 215 days, but the good value product, like a good product, something that I could stand behind in a lot of those fields was the toughest thing to come by,
Mm-hmm.
and to have that steady consistency. So that's really great. I wanted to ask you guys, because I know you guys are big connoisseurs. What's your favorite strain at the moment in the current flavor climate that we see? You guys still OG guys, or?
I mean, I was just going to say, actually, I mean, if I had to pick a strain to be on a desert island, I couldn't have any others. It would be OG for me.
There you go.
And maybe because I'm an East Coast guy and it wasn't readily available. When we got it, it was coveted.
Because you're a smoker and you know that shit's always gonna work. It's
It
always
does.
gonna taste good, and it's gonna be that if I was on a desert island, I would feel the same way. And yeah, I'm from LA and part of the movement, and like I get like OG has been a big part of my life specifically, but also you guys on the East Coast, because if you could get your hands on some real OG back there, I mean, come on,
It was you knew it was fire.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the new stuff goes,
What are you most excited about to throw in the facility?
Well, I'm most excited
First
we're going to be
one.
growing our Extreme Cream again finally.
Okay, you
we
like
haven't
Extreme
flowered it
Cream?
in 2 years.
Okay.
We've got it held for us at places.
Okay.
We're going to get it back in. I'm really looking forward to flowering that one. But I mean, maybe I'm dating myself and I'm not on the cutting edge, but the GMOs and all the wedding cakes and things like that, I like them. They're
GMO's great.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I know there's several other people looking to do the same line of thinking that we have, but we want to get a lot of those old school strains back in and the proper phenos of them and start growing them and bringing them to the legal market the right way, not
Yeah.
just by name only.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So yeah, we're putting Kevin Jodry on call that we're going to need some of them old strains from him once we get going.
There you go, Kev. They coming. Yeah, I mean, also having the background of managing a shop, and I knew that I always had to have like certain things. Like, yeah, I probably have 10 OGs on my shelf at any given time, but I still have a Blue Dream. I always have a Blue Dream. I always have a Jack. I always have like certain sativa strains that are very niche and different, but
People get
I'm
them.
not going to buy a lot of them, but I need them. I have to have them because I have patients that come in specifically for those things.
And it's really because we haven't done enough R&D to know why people like that particular terp profile, but it's that particular cannabinoid and terp profile that people are attracted to, is why that always sticks around as an old tried and true.
Well, and Kevin will tell you they have success with getting people off of narcotics and opiate addictions with OGs.
Yeah.
There's something about the terpene profile in OGs that are similar to and aid in the withdrawal symptoms of opiates.
Yeah, and I mean, OG is definitely the strongest. Done well, it's the strongest strain there is as far as I'm concerned, as like actual potency. But it tests normally in like the 25 to 28 range. You know what I mean? And there's things that test into the high 30s now that definitely don't have near the kick that OG does. So what we find is that terp profile you're talking about is way more important.
It's all about
than,
them.
It's the same way with our Extreme Cream. Everybody loves that profile and loves that effect from it, but the numbers that it comes out with are not off the charts. It's the combination. We've deemed it for several years the tuning fork effect. Like it's a particular
It hit that frequency.
ratio and a particular person's template or palette, however you want to describe it, and it hit right in that right frequency, and that's why it works for them. And there's just some of those that have broader appeal.
That's the stigma we need to beat within the industry. Everybody's going on this higher THC, and shops are paying by THC levels and things like that.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, I've got 18% strains that'll get you higher than a 30% strain all day long.
Yeah, and not just they're more pleasing too, is the effect, because a lot of these 35 and 36 and a lot of the early like punch heavy crosses and a lot of these things that just had no real kick to them. It's what I like to call it was like old BC Bud. It looked great, but it was generic, and it didn't really have any terp flavor to it.
And then the other way to look at it too is Marinol. Marinol's THC, but it's not the same.
No,
it's not the same at all. So if you're breeding in THC, you're only going to have so many percentages of cannabinoids and terpenes. You can only have so much because there needs to be plant material along with it.
Exactly.
So when you start getting more and more THC, you're obviously having less of other things. So to me, I just equated to Marinol. Marinol, sure, it'll get me high, but I don't like it.
No.
Right? It's not the same. But now you could take something that had all your terps and other cannabinoids you want in it with half the amount of THC and have a better feeling. So that's kind of how I equate this. Everybody wanting to be higher in THC. It's not really relevant, I don't think.
Well, and it's interesting to see how it's playing out differently here, West Coast versus East Coast. Bill's girlfriend and several of other friends of ours are in the Pennsylvania scene, and people there are literally going in and purchasing product based on the myrcene level, the caryophyllene level. They've figured out what particular terpene or cannabinoid works for them, and that's what they're actually buying by. The THC percentage is secondary to them, and it's because they weren't the black market like we were for 20 plus years, where THC was what everybody was trying to grow. They're a little bit more of an educated market than we are.
True medical.
Yeah,
they've never had
medical.
recreational. And they don't even, well, the other thing too is because we're not required to, and because the packaging restrictions are such in California, you rarely see a terp profile.
Yeah.
Ever.
I mean, it's expensive.
Well, you have to do the test, but it's a matter of getting it on your packaging.
Yeah, I mean,
for
that
people
part,
to
that
see.
part is expensive.
Literally, my girlfriend was saying Pennsylvania, people come in because they saw the terp profile online, and they go in for that product, period. So it's just a whole different, but I'm happy to see that. And that's what Jeff and I have noticed being from the East Coast but living on the West Coast is the West Coast is ahead in a lot of things, but because the East Coast is developing in a vacuum away from the West Coast culture, so to speak, they're developing different things, and some of that stuff is better.
Yeah.
Dare I say it, it's better, but it is. There's a lot of things like looking for your medicine with other cannabinoids and terpenes rather than what is the THC level. Oh, I'm not buying anything under 25, right? They don't even look at that, so to speak. So.
Yeah. I mean, the East Coast, a lot of the city areas in Jersey and like down the Philly, like down the New Jersey Turnpike and stuff, like a lot of those big old industrial warehouse type, like Detroit is like, come on, man, how many cool grows could you put downtown Detroit? Like that's a big place, and like honestly, California has great weather, and especially for dep and for outdoor, but indoor it doesn't have. There's traits about it that I'm not like super happy with. It's a little hot. There's things about it that like I feel like there's gonna be other places in the market that open up, and that maybe they're gonna just, they're gonna exceed what we're capable of doing out here.
From the production side, California is somewhat on borrowed time. Once we get to federal legalization, people aren't going to maintain the majority of their operations here.
It's expensive
for that reason as well.
Just to start off.
And it's not centrally located if you're trying to do nationwide distribution.
One other thing that I was thinking of in this whole thing is that like it's a product that needs to stay fresh. I don't even like packaging in eighth packaging because I feel like that's too small of a quantity for it to stay fresh and really give like somebody, like an ounce jar, I feel like is the only way at this point to even keep it like.
We can't do that because of taxes. Is the reality of it.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to package in eighths.
Yeah.
Because they end up being 40 to 60 to $80.
Yeah.
Right. It's crazy. So we're forced to it, but Jeff was saying too, and we love California, but the reality of it is, if it's cheaper and you can produce the same product somewhere else, it's not going to stay in downtown in a warehouse.
No.
It's going to go to Oklahoma.
Well,
and then they ship it one way to New York and the other way to LA.
I mean, there's a reason there's all kinds of massive grows in Palm Springs, Desert Hot Springs, Cathedral City, California City. They're all servicing the LA market. They just weren't going to operate on LA pricing.
Well, they couldn't. They
Yeah,
couldn't
well,
operate.
LA had
price.
LA is a whole different beast, but
Yeah.
we feel it'll end up being like a commodity at some point to where it's going to be down to the pennies and the nickels, and you're not going to be able to cultivate where your rent is triple what it is somewhere else, and your
Yeah.
electricity cost is triple. So
I feel like LA will always have a craft market, and that's what
Absolutely.
it'll turn into.
Yeah.
And I hope that they get on board with like, if city can get their head out of their houses, so to speak, and start with this on-site consumption thing, and we can start building like craft brewery style stuff where we can focus strains and put certain growers in them, and like people can really taste the market. Then I think that model is
that's
exciting.
that's the one thing with LA. LA will always and forever be the epicenter of culture for cannabis, primarily because you have Hollywood here and people are watching what Hollywood does. But beyond that, like you said, so many of the people that have come up and have cultivated a traditional market here that grew that fire that everybody had came from here. The knowledge is here. The culture is here. You can't take that away. But as far as square footage and physical, like
Yeah.
when you're talking about servicing the entire country and it's a federally legalized product, it's going to be different.
When I see the brick buildings in Brooklyn and when I'm driving like through the city and stuff like that, and like anytime I'm on one of those bridges or those freeways and I see all these big 5-story brick buildings that I know have 12-foot ceilings, and like I get excited about it. Like makes me think. I always think cultivating, so I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
Can you imagine the spot I could build in
Be
that
awesome.
thing?
We do the same thing. Every time I see a big old building, I go, "Oh, grow! That'd be awesome in there."
Yeah.
Well, and the reality is they need to do something with the on-site consumption or something to that effect, because the brick and mortar model is on borrowed time as well, and
100%.
and it's being sped up right now by this virus. And
Oh, yeah.
seeing how much you can do curbside and delivery
gosh.
only, and how much the actual showroom experience is not necessary, is going to be the next factor in
Once
how
you
we are able to try to control cost and increase revenue when people are
Yeah.
struggling
Once you
as
have
much as
brand
they are.
equity like across the board, then the delivery platform just crushes everything.
Dispensaries have to be destinations.
Yeah, they do.
They're not. You can't just have a dispensary in a strip mall and people are going to come to it. Oklahoma's about to figure that out.
Yes.
because there's so many.
Yeah, they
There's
didn't.
so
I didn't
many.
understand that.
I mean, honestly, I don't mind that because you know what happens? The cream rises to the crop.
Of course, 100%.
Business wise and cultivation wise. So you either do good business in your eyes or you do cultivation in your eyes. And if you don't, you're going to be one of those empty stores in a strip mall.
And for those that don't know, like you can build an amazing cultivation, and if the wrong dude is showing up every day, it's not going to be what it is elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Oh no, there's still craft in it, and that's why these big companies are failing. You can't
Yeah,
just hire somebody
100%.
with book knowledge to run your cannabis facility. It doesn't translate.
Or somebody that grew plants, or like.
I mean, I'm not downing any of those people. It's great college. I don't have a college degree
Me
in
neither.
horticulture, but I can do things that a person with a college degree can't do. But there's things that they can do that I can't. But in
course.
cannabis, there's things that I can do that they can't. So
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead with the Oklahoma thing that you were talking about, though.
I was just going to say the cream's
There-
going to rise to the top. They have, I think it's only $2,500. You need to be a resident. It's $2,500. You can open up a shop.
It's easy to open.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's going to
But
happen is
there's
you have
nothing
to.
in Oklahoma.
There's nothing in Oklahoma, so they're servicing 4 million people.
Yeah.
Now, the advantage is if these guys get in there and they build up a thriving business in Oklahoma and they do well,
Well,
and they're one of-
Dallas pops off. That's
well,
great.
well, when federal comes around, Oklahoma
It's a
is
good
going to be
place.
positioned
Yeah.
such like no other state. If they legalize it federally like next year, Oklahoma is going to be. I mean, other than Oregon and Washington are pretty well off too.
Well,
but they're
they
going
got
to be
wide open land.
yeah.
It's cheap.
It's cheap. That's what
It's
I'm
in
getting
a
at.
great space. It's on the corridor to Chicago. It's right above Texas, which makes total sense for that.
Yeah, so they could do well, but what I was getting at is they're going to figure out you have to be a destination. You're going to have a good cultivator. And there's going to have to be some kind of draw, and people are going to have to know about it.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing the most is even if you grow the best cannabis in the world, you might not be able to sell it because nobody knows who you are. So marketing becomes huge as well. So anybody who's jumping on and doing those things in Oklahoma will succeed. They'll be one of the Oklahoma brands to make it. Well, let's face it, they have over 2,000 dispensaries already for 4 million people. They can't all make it.
No, it's
So-
not going to make it. I mean, there's a steep learning curve in the business that people are unaware of. And obviously, some of the people that are fresh-faced and really into it, they will make it. You know what I mean? Because you never know what model is going to work. But I do feel like they're biting off more than they can chew in most sentences. We found that early just from touring people's stuff and like seeing a lot of the first like white market stuff even out of the city because it was still medical here, like in the OC and other places that were like, it was obvious that people hadn't done this before.
I'm sure there's nightmares going on. because
Oh, yeah.
all you need is $2,500 and a roof, right? And you're now a cultivator.
Yeah.
That is somewhat of a recipe for disaster. But I really think that the people that get in there and do it good will do well. Because if you don't grow well, 1 or 2 crops of nothing coming back, or
you're
it's
done.
garbage and you're done.
It's not going to work.
Even if you're
And even if the company's financed to like continue to go, you're not going to be the one.
I would have
running it.
rather seen like a happy medium here. California went way too far on regulation and taxation. I believe Oklahoma could have been a little bit more structured, but I'll be honest with you. What I like is their freedom. Like they wrote a bill that said, you can't take my gun, right? You can't fire me from my job if I have a medical card for testing positive for cannabis. And we're going to make it accessible for the average person to be able to have a chance. They were the only people that have done it since California in like the last 2 decades.
And let's be honest, like I think California would be taking in more tax dollars right now if they used the same model.
Of course they
Oh,
would.
Absolutely.
There would be no black market. Let's start there.
Well, I don't think there wouldn't be any. It
But,
would
I
be
mean-
smaller. You'll never get rid of it.
No, of course not.
But it
I
would
mean,
be,
in the sense of like, if it took any one of these cultivators out here, they're still producing black market flower, and you told them that they could have a spot for $2,500 or even something reasonable that they could get into something and license their business, it would be licensed.
yeah, give them
100%.
some kind of a path. They didn't really even California didn't give anybody a path. They
No.
basically said, here it is.
And
You
stack
can't
the deck on one
yeah,
side.
You
and
can't do it, and we're expecting you to disappear off Instagram because you got to go black again, right? You got to go dark. Won't be able to do anything. But it's, we've talked about it since they came out with Prop 64. It was overregulated. It was overtaxed. They would be doing much better. If the average consumer could go into a shop and get a tested, trusted product for 20% more, 30% more, maybe, but not 100% more. You're not going to catch the market when you're doubling the price. People are still going to go to their friend down the street who hasn't gotten them sick.
Yeah. And
Right?
I mean, and think about the backside of that. Like we wouldn't have to charge as much if we weren't taxed every point in the business, and then a huge local and state licensing fee that is just like, is this necessary? What other business do you charge a licensing fee like this to operate?
I mean, as far as we know, none.
Well,
Plutonium is regulated less than we are.
And not only that,
Crazy, right?
that you basically force a middleman level to. And I mean, I say that as us having a distribution license, but they basically put that in as a tax collection license for people to have, and it's not sustainable for those businesses to do sales of new territories and fulfillment for brands and building brands at the rate you're expected to get for that. And then the brands are not getting properly serviced into the retail locations. So I mean, it's the keystone point of the supply chain. They made not a sustainable, successful model, and they've forced that on it. And you've seen they've somewhat corrected on how they're not going to have the distributions collecting the tax going forward.
That didn't work out.
Well, the reality of it is they want a distribution, and most distributions are charging 10% for sales and 10% for distribution. So you're working on a 20% markup. What businesses work on a 20% markup? That's a 10% margin. The only way you do that is if you're doing multi-million-dollar deals on a 10% margin. Restaurants are operating at a 30+% margin. So a cannabis
Here's the kicker.
distribution.
And now anybody that's somebody on the cultivation side is actually distributing their own product too.
Well,
So
you
for
had to.
For the outside distributor, I mean, they have no shot.
We've always said too, basically the market has 3 parts. You have production, you have distribution, and you have retail.
Mm-hmm.
You must control your own destiny in either 2 parts of those, or you must completely be the best at one.
Yeah.
In other words, you can't just produce unless you're the best, because you can't do it. You can't just distribute. And honestly, I don't even know if you can just distribute. If you did just distribution and you're doing like I was talking about with 20%, I don't even know how you function a business like that. You can't. So, but if you do distribution and retail, you're cutting it out. But you have to cut out paying somebody else for that middle part, or you just can't make it.
Yeah, and we know that the reason that they did this was because of the huge entrance fee into the business.
Well,
That was the thought behind that.
And they also did it because they didn't want the state to actually have the responsibility of collecting the taxes. They put that responsibility on distribution licenses to collect the cultivation tax and to collect the excise tax, and then remit it to the state.
So
they basically
downright
made you
dangerous.
a tax collector.
They made you a
for
tax
somebody
collector.
to actually hold that much income and not be able to bank.
Yeah, can't
You know what I
bank
mean?
either. Can't bank.
I mean,
Well-
I heard of big places that were getting robbed and safes that went missing in the initial push, and it was like,
Well-
I mean, you kind of asked for that to be. You made them a target.
All you have to do is look at the fact that with Metric, you have a manifest for the product going to the retail. And then you're picking up, if it's COD, you're picking up the equivalent value in cash. And they are not concerned about how that cash gets from the retail back to the distribution or to wherever. There's no tracking of the cash once you're supposed to get it because they already know the tax amount that they are supposed to get at that point. They're not concerned about it.
Yeah, but they should be. I mean,
Absolutely, they should be.
It's a public
The
hazard.
delivery truck you're talking about, with I think was $145,000 in cash in the back of it that got robbed at a gas station.
I was talking about a company's like home office up north in the Bay, but like same thing. I mean, they got hit for a good amount of money in the safe, and it was like, and it happens over and over and over again, and it's because you're not allowing these people to. You're handcuffing them and making them, do things that are dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean, that all goes back to the feds just not allowing it. My opinion, here's the reason we're where we're at. The politicians that were getting elected realized that approximately 10 years ago, we started going over half of the country realizing that cannabis wasn't bad. So they realized that half of their people that were voting for them were now pro-cannabis. So they started getting pro-cannabis. But what they did is, and that was only in order to get elected. So they just get elected being pro-cannabis, but they're not really pro-cannabis, so to speak. So it's just been gradually bled out, and they don't want to do that until they figure out a way for their constituents, all the big business donors, because we can't donate. That's the weird, crazy catch-22. Here we are, the billion-dollar business everybody wants a part of, and we can't even get enough money together to lobby like every other industry. So we're just getting passed around and beat up between the politicians and the state governments, and everybody wants to tax us, but we can't even try to form our own laws like every other industry. It's so crazy, but they want to let a little bit out at a time till they figure out how their buddies can get a hold of it. And that's my theory why we don't have any federal yet, and that's why we don't have banking, because they just can't do it. It's crazy.
Luckily for us, they might get their hands in it, but we know that they're not going to want to deal with this at some point either.
No, they don't want to deal with the whole mess. They just want their tax.
Yeah, yeah, that's better. I definitely feel the same way though.
And they're realizing it's not the green rush, gold rush they thought it was, that you actually have to operate a business just like any other industry
The margins
to
aren't
sustain
the
it.
margins aren't great.
There's work involved.
Yeah.
You don't just print money.
No, there's a lot of work. The margins aren't great. It's overly taxed and regulated, and slowly they're taking the life out of us a little bit. I feel like.
Yeah, but you know what? Here, I do take some. I'm not going to say pleasure, but what they were trying to do was destroy all of us little guys. That's what they wanted to do. They made high levels for entry. You know, people couldn't afford it, or you weren't able to get a license because there's only so many. So the barriers to entry were high. What they didn't do is they didn't figure that the big boys they allowed in would fail as fast as they are.
Yeah.
That's the little guy's only advantage right now, is that we've been able to outlast the big companies, which we didn't think we could do, but we knew we had to couldn't be frivolous with money, couldn't make wrong decisions, and then these big companies just came in and spent money like there was never going to be a shortage of it. They would just get another infusion.
Yeah, let's start
10
with
mil.
us knowing what mistakes not to make right off the gate.
Well, I mean, the simple fact is we're operators, not speculators.
Exactly.
And this has been a speculative market for the last couple of
Yes.
years. All the people coming in with money, looking to build something, sell it off, and get gone. We're all in this for the long haul. Otherwise, we weren't doing it 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, when there was massive risk in it.
Yeah.
We're just hopeful that the reward now will be, ability to live normal lives,
Yes.
ability to make, good, comfortable livings for ourselves. Neither one of us
That's
are
how-
looking to get rich off of this.
No. So it definitely has to be profitable in the sense that I do want to live well and be able to give opportunity to other people through it. And it provides tons and tons of jobs done in the quality way. I mean, obviously, there's nothing like having eyes and hands on plants, because that's what, they vibe. They vibe out to that. They respond to that. The product isn't the same when you don't care for it or you're not around it as much.
Oh no, that's part of what we liked about it too. Even if you're in the same grow room every day, it's never the same.
It's never
Plants
the
are
same.
always in a different cycle of
Yes.
life. They're always doing something different. There's always something new, a new challenge. It's never the same. I've never been a cubicle guy. You couldn't put me in a cubicle for 8 hours a day. I'd go nuts.
Yeah, office space for sure. I feel the same way. You're out there shooting the printers. We're gonna wrap it up here soon. We got a couple minutes left. Anything you guys want to shout out or pump? Go ahead and shoot your Instagram out so everybody knows.
Okay, our our Instagram is beardbros_farms with a PH. On Facebook, it's Beard Bros Farms. We have beardbrosfarms.com, where we post and put out our original news articles that we do every week. We have a Friday newsletter we put out. We call it the Friday Sesh. It's basically a review of the week previous in cannabis. So if you've been busy and can't keep up to date, it's a great thing to get sent to your inbox every Friday. All we need is your name and email. That's it. One email every Friday, just a reminder of what's going on in cannabis.
Usually also have a event calendar on there. I think what we're going to be doing going forward, as they're popping up more and more, is promoting the virtual events that everybody's going to start doing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
We
I think
need that for
think,
now, yeah,
think there's a
obviously.
few coming up early April.
Okay, cool.
As offsets to not doing Hall of Flowers. So
Yeah,
that, we
that's
can have
good.
some B2B as
Just
well.
to have some, yeah, and to just have some unity in the space as well, because this is such a communal. The plant is a communal thing. It always has been. I'll tell a story about my kid's mother. Her father is a germaphobe. He's a Russian man they're from Uzbekistan, and he's a super germaphobe. And she remembers that, like, even as a kid, he smokes. He's actually in the business. He was a shop owner and still has a pre-ICO in the South Bay. And she remembers that he would pass a joint. She remembers, like, early memories of him passing a joint when she was a kid. And she thought it was the oddest thing ever, because her dad was this man that was, like, wouldn't even touch somebody or shake their hand and was super, but he would, like,
Hand a joint.
yeah, he wouldn't kiss her. Like, he had social anxiety about germs, and passing a joint was a thing. So it's definitely a communal thing. And getting back to that, I just want to say that it'll be nice to have some community back together, because we don't get to social distancing and whatnot.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. When do you think the new facility is going to be up and kicking? What's your timeline on it?
So the facility in Coalinga, we're shooting for May 1st.
Okay.
That's, providing all city inspections and all those
Everything
things
goes
go
well.
correctly. We also recently we're taking over a grow that's up in Oakland. We will be hopefully putting some of our products out through that as well. So that might end up coming to market sooner through there than the facility we're finishing.
Yeah.
It's an ever-changing, ever-evolving landscape, and companies are working with each other. That brings me back to the culture we're doing with Jason Washington and Matt Morgan. It's basically a management group.
Yeah.
And we are able to provide structure and experience to operators who find themselves in a situation where they're lacking.
Awesome. And that's shout out Culture. What's the Instagram for Culture?
It's culture with a K, Culture Global.
Culture.global.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big group, guys, because, I mean, obviously with Matt on board and these guys heading up the cultivation department, it's got some good people that know what they're doing and are, I guess, here to help.
We are.
Good. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I'm glad that you guys could make it out in this weird climate here in Southern California. All the people listening, thanks. Stay safe and have hope.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
You're listening to Hayes Radio Network, Cannabis Lifestyle Radio.